everyone, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using a couple of different stamp sets here from Lawn Fawn. I have the Jump for Joy, the Happy Harvest, and the Holiday Party Animal. And then I'm also going to be using this 6x6 pad from Echo Park called Fall is in the Air. So I'm going to begin with my coloring, and I'm going to use YR14, YR16, and YR18 for my oranges. So I'll use that for my fox, for the pumpkins, and for the little legs and beak on my owl. Even though I do like a lot of contrast in my coloring, I usually do prefer to simplify how many shades I use throughout the project. I think the less that your eye has to pull around to different spots, the more it can just take in the scene as a whole. So using the same combination for, say, all the oranges in this case can really help give your piece some consistency. Although you certainly could choose some different oranges for the pumpkins and, different ones for the fox. Just using those same shades throughout the project just kind of pulls the whole thing together. So just as usual, I began with my lightest shade, the YR14, and then I went in and laid in my shadows with the YR16, and then deepened those with the YR18, and now I'm just working back down in the reverse. You'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of white space on his ears and his paws and his feet and things, and that's because I wanted to use a different color on those spots, and you'll see that later. But I did want it to blend in with the orange, so that's why I colored in most of it. For the pumpkins, I'm just going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to take my YR14 and kind of put a highlight right down the center so that they'll look a little more rounded in appearance. And then I'm just taking my, I meant to grab my YR16. I accidentally grabbed my YR18 first, and I just decided to go with it. So I'm just going to lay in those deep shadows, kind of accentuate the little grooves there, and any place where one pumpkin would be behind another pumpkin, just add some shadows, and then just blend that out with the YR16, and then finish with the YR14 in the very centers to just keep those highlights nice and bright. For my owl, I'm using E44, E47, and E49, and I apologize, I set those caps just out of the frame, but those are usually my favorite brown combo for kind of a medium dark animal. I think it just works really well. I've colored this little guy in with some warm grays a bunch of times, and I just decided to go a little bit different on this card. So I chose that E combo. And as I like to do when I'm working with darker shades, I just color in all along the side and leave that center part white until I'm ready to do my final shade. And that's just to keep those highlights really bright, and so you have that high contrast that I really like in my coloring. I'm using those same 3 browns for the pumpkin stems. And now I'm going to add in a little W7 just to accent the fox's ears and his little paws, and also on his little feet there. I'm using W00, W1, and W3 to just add a little bit of shading on the white portions, so the fox's face, his tail, and the little coffee mug here. Or it could be hot apple cider, whatever you want it to be in this little fall scene. And then I'll just use my colorless blender to just kind of brighten up the centers of that so that it doesn't get too dark. And then I decided to also use those same 3 shades to do the owl's belly. Moving on to our wagon, I'm going to use my favorite red combo, R29, R39, and R59. And I just love this combo because it works for so many things. It's a nice bright red with a lot of shading in it, And I've tried just other combos, and I always come back to this one. I just think it works great. It works great for any kind of holiday decor, for Santa's jacket, for Santa hats, and just anything that needs to be bright red, fire engine, anything like that. It just seems to be a very versatile color combo, and yeah, I just really, really like it, so I use it quite often. And while I'm just finishing that up, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Abby and Elena. They are two girls who go to my son Elliot's school, and they found my channel and have been watching my videos, and they asked if I would please give a shout out to them. So I just wanted to say hi, girls, and thanks for watching. And you can see I just goofed there as I was coloring in that wheel well. I just kind of went outside of the lines. But the best thing to do when that happens, especially with reds, is to just let it dry. I know if you're anything like me, I have a tendency to want to fix things immediately. But if that ink is still wet, you're just going to end up pushing it around. So really the best thing is to let it dry completely, and then you can go in with your colorless blender. And 9 times out of 10, I have no trouble fixing it that way. If you still can see a little bit of it, you can go over it with a white gel pen, and usually that will finish up the job. But again, if you just let that dry, the colorless blender usually works. So I'm moving to my little accessories here, and I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17 for this larger leaf. And then G21, G24, and G28 for the smaller one. I'm using BG13 and BG18 for the pie pan, and E31 and E33 for the pie crust. And all these shades are going to tie into my pattern papers. So switching to our focal panel, I decided to go with a different shape for a change. I haven't used an oval on a card in quite some time. So I die cut one out of MFT's Snow Cone cardstock, and then used a couple shades of green to do the hillsides using the Lawn Fawn Stitch Hillside Border dies. I stamped Let's Celebrate from the Lawn Fawn Holiday Party Animal stamp set using their Noble Fur ink, and then I just popped that up with some foam tape. I added a small cloud to the sky, and now I'm attaching my wagon to the distant hill with some Tombow Mono multi-glue. I'm also going to attach my little owl to that distant hill just to kind of add some dimension to my scene. And I'll give him the little pie in his hand. I added foam tape to the top portion of the fox, just to the part that would be sticking over the hill, and liquid glue to the rest of him. And I'll just add him there, and then I'm going to do the same with the little coffee cup. Just cut off a tiny little sliver for the edge that'll be over the hill and use liquid glue for the rest. I'm going to use mini glue dots for my leaves, and that's just so that I can kind of curve them up and give them a little more dimension. I wanted to tuck this green one back behind the pumpkins, but it went down a little bit too far the first time, so I just pulled that back up. And then I'm going to use this larger yellow leaf and tuck that behind the front hill near the wagon wheel. Let's get that settled there. Fluff that up, and then I have one more little red one that I'm going to add over on the other side of the scene so that you get that visual triangle. So now I'm pulling out the Echo Park paper pad, and I just used one print from that pad, and I love that these papers are double-sided because that means you can flip over the excess and you have a whole new print that completely coordinates. So I'm just going to attach the floral print to the top portion, and then I'll use this little red scallop portion at the bottom. Then I'm grabbing some Bay Arts button twine. This is something I used to use a lot on my cards and haven't used in a while. I was trying to think outside the box on this card and just do a couple different things that, maybe hadn't done in a while or hadn't done it all, so I decided to just wrap that around the card base twice and then tie that in a little bow. And I just like to put my pinky in the center to hold that tight while I'm tying it. It really helps a lot. And then I'll just adjust the little bow and trim off the excess there. I have used foam tape on the back of my focal panel, and I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I get that really straight on the card, and then I can pop that down into place once I have everything adjusted. And I just want to pull out that little twine bow before I push that down firmly. And I thought the bow was just looking a little plain, so I decided to add one more leaf. And I'll just use a dab of Ranger's Multimedia Matte right over the knot. That will also keep that knot in place so it can't be untied. And then I'll just press the little leaf right over top, and once that dries it won't be going anywhere. And that's going to complete our card for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you missed my last video, it's there for you on screen. You can just go ahead and click the little video clip and it will take you right to it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.